Hi, this is Mike from thesubstream.com, and this is an episode of Watch This Instead for the week ending the 25th of June 2010. And recently, if you've been watching any kind of TV or listening to any kind of radio, you've seen the dudes from Grown Ups, Adam Sandler, Kevin James, really out there promoting their film, Grown Ups. And I'll give you a hint, this is something that took me an embarrassingly long time to realize. But when you see these incredibly famous people out there hustling, it's a really good sign that their movie stinks, which it absolutely does. You can understand where the genesis of this film came from. 4 out of the 5 guys, Chris Rock, Adam Sandler, David Spade, Rob Schneider, they all started together at the same time, young kids, 1990 in New York on Saturday Night Live, and they were the bad boys of Saturday Night Live. And can you imagine what it must have been like to be in those hallowed halls of comedy? And then Kevin James, another guy who grew up in the 80s, worked in the 90s as a stand-up, and he's funny too. And they were just, oh my God, let's just make a movie where it's just 5 of the funniest guys ever hanging out and cracking jokes. A little bit older, so they have wives and kids. They're not these young, kids with no appeal to families. They're older now. They have serious lives, but they still go to a cabin and sit on a pier and say, hey, your wife farts a lot, or oh, your kid is funny looking, or what's with your hair? Ah! And it's like you're being asked to pay $14 to hang out with some friends. And that's the thing, is when I hang out with my friends, I don't have to pay for it. And they're still funny. Grown Ups is awful, almost unbelievably awful. It's hard to credit in the middle of the film that you're watching 5 legitimately talented guys make a film this bad. And this is coming from somebody that idolizes Adam Sandler, thinks that Billy Madison and Happy Gilmore are not just some of the funniest, but also kind of the most cinematically important films of the 1990s, which I'm not going to get into now. But I have no problem saying that this movie stinks. It's just brutally, awfully, unrelentingly unfunny, even in the scenes that the movie was designed to showcase. Even in the scenes where they're just 5 guys sitting on a pier, playing the dozens with each other, cracking jokes at their own expense. Even these scenes, these are the best scenes in this whole film. And they're still not very funny. It's miserable. It's miserable. It's misery. Miserable. It's miserable. Miserable. There's a joke, okay? It's not the first time I've seen it, but it's a joke. A joke. Inappropriately old child breastfeeding. Okay, that's a joke. And they go back to that well like 6 times over the course of the film. How many different words can Chris Rock come up with for a lady that's got a big toe? 9? 18? How many times can 5 guys get grossed out by a 70-year-old woman being sexual? 106? How many minutes have you got in your film? That's how many times they'll go back to the same well with the same jokes. Rent The Great Outdoors with Dan Aykroyd and John Candy and watch that instead of Grown Ups. If you're in Toronto, I think you can go see it at the Toronto Underground Cinema sometime next week. Check their website for details, but if you're not, just go rent it. It's from 1998 and it's directed by Howard Deutsch, who got famous for directing some of John Hughes' scripts, including Pretty in Pink, and John Hughes produced The Great Outdoors for him. It's dumb, it's full of goofy gags with mean animals that come out of the woods and cause trouble and raccoons that talk to each other. But it has a story, and some actual effort was put into making a film that had some scenes that were something other than just rich guys that you intellectually know are funny because you've seen them be funny in other movies at some point in the past. Hang around and make fun of each other's hair and the way that their clothes look. Plus it's got John Candy in it, who with each year that goes by since he died is looking more and more like the genius that us smart people, me and you, thought that he was when he was still alive with us, making actually funny films that had actual characters and actual stories and weren't just excuses to sneak their little hand in your pocket and take 14 bucks out. Oh, I'm sweaty. I hope I don't get shot in the G20 riots this weekend, because that would just be the worst.